You know, I never thought I'd be making a take on the amazing digital circus for reasons more obvious than others.
Smelly garbage or old dumpster?
You get the low tide?
No.
How about wet dog?
Yep, stink it up.
But sure enough, we're here. All right, so I'm sure we've all heard or seen the amazing digital circus, right? Short, stubby jester, red Annie doll, a mastermind mouth jaw piece. I don't know what the fuck it is. Well, after randomly catching one of the episodes on TV, I wanted to turn this shit off immediately, but I couldn't find the remote, so I was stuck binge watching the amazing digital circus. And whenever I found out that what was originally started to be a web show for YouTube made it to legit theaters worldwide, I was even more intrigued to see what all the talk was about. And the story seemed pretty deep from the clips that I've seen on TikTok. So in today's video, man, I'm gonna be doing what a lot of people will not do, and that is sit down and watch the amazing digital circus. I'm gonna try to go through the whole series and include the ending. And the first episode kicks it off right with the theme song, and we're introduced to Pomni, a girl who put on a virtual headset and digitally transcended to a digital circus that has no end or exit in sight. And off rip, I like the whole Ready Player One or isekai for short subgenre. I know there are probably some better comparisons, but I don't have a clue what any of those are really about. But we're introduced to the gang of Gangle, Zubul, Kinger, Ragatha, Jax, Kaufmo, who is currently absent, and now the newest addition, Pomni, who hasn't been named yet, but we're just gonna go over that part. We get to this talking jaw named Kane, who is basically their overseer. He controls what they eat, sleep, drink. He really doesn't do any of those, but rather send these guys on life-risking adventures. So Kane walks Pomni over, the way this whole circus thing works, which basically consists of you have no control over this world, down to not remembering your original name, and you stay right where his eyes can see you, and he runs this whole thing. And the match is he puts them on their first adventure, which is to stop the Gloinks from stealing their in-world assets, which are, their things that are living, like their tables and fucking chairs and shit. I don't know, and Pomni didn't really care either. She started questioning things like, where's an exit at? Like, to which Jax just gaslights her question with another question, and then pitches the idea of finding this Kaufmo guy. Ragatha, Jax, and Pomni head to their rooms, and while they're walking, Ragatha explains that this whole place is basically just a hellhole, and you'll either adapt to it or you'll drive yourself into it. Seeing me trying to figure it out doesn't really help the situation. I appreciate the explanation. They get to the room of Kaufmo, to which it is locked, and after failed attempts to breach into the room, Jax explains that he has the keys to every room in the circus.
I've got keys everywhere, and you've all been fine. By the way, I may have left something in your room today, so let me know if you find it.
Nah, I know it might seem like I'm pointing out the bad in this nigga, but no, this nigga just kicked it off being a dickhead. Like, these two descriptions of Jax, they're two very important pieces to the whole entire thing. Just keep that in mind. They unlock the door and find a shit show of a mess. Like, it's definitely a lot to take in. This man Jax grabs a bowling ball and just instant transmissions out of there. This nigga has genuine issues, bro. Jax meets up with Gangle and Kinger, who are at like a random black hole. Gangle asks about Kaufmo, to which this nigga Jax just straight up lies and tosses them into some pit. They get to the mother of the slugs, called a Gloinker. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what the fuck the name was. Pomni and Ragatha are getting chased down by this thing, and I'm not gonna lie, Ragatha got done the worst way. Pomni ends up escaping and finds a conveniently placed exit door. She ends up going through all of them and then finding the void. Got these boys on a whole ass Fortnite event right now. Kane comes in and grabs her saying, we don't want you to get spoiled. To which he brings her back to the gang and he breaks the news, Kaufmo abstracted. And like, for pilot, that's pretty good in my eyes. Like, don't get me wrong, there were times the writing was like,
wasn't this whole thing for her?
Be quiet. I can't hear the escalator.
I don't know if this man just mad because he not cracking nothing over here, but this a bitch ass bunny, bro. We get to episode 2, and I'm gonna start going through these a bit quicker. I'm not gonna lie. I just wanted to get the main foundation out the way with the pilot, and this show definitely gets a little sidetracked throughout. Now on the episode 2, Pomni wakes up from this insane dream that she's being abstracted. I'm not really sure what the point of this dream was at this point, but it might mean something in the future. Ragatha wakes her up, and they get sent to their next adventure, which is Candy Cane Kingdom, where they'll be retrieving the stolen syrup from the newly set in place NPCs. They make friends and eventually made enemies, and while trying to retrieve the syrup from the bandit, the biggest and in my opinion the only thing I could really take away from this scene was how much of a dickhead this nigga Jax was again, yo. Bro got a gun to Gangle's face telling her to ram into the truck with Pomni on it or he's gonna tell Ragatha about her figurine thing. Yo, we gotta get this nigga Jax going, bro. When I first first seen this shit, I swear I thought this nigga was just in over his head or some shit, but like, nah, like this is just genuine hatred. All of this buffoonery eventually got both of them sent flying in their own ways, one into a whole new dimension, and the other one to like some freaky Willy Wonka ass type creation. Pomni and the leader of this gator gang get glitched out of the map to some random dark room, and here we see his crew all together in like a T-pose form. It sends the Gummy Goo nigga to a little manic episode, I ain't gonna lie. And I mean, for obvious reasons, like Pomni starts comforting him, letting him know that he isn't the only one who's a bit confused to this whole thing, and that he should come back to the digital circus where they're from once they leave this area. So fast forward, they all meet, make friends, head back to the circus, only for this nigga King to delete the gator immediately. And this episode really showed me how power centered it is around King. You know, from the entrance of the Candy King being a picture of this nigga on the fucking church or whatever it was, to him literally having the power to manipulate gravity. The next episode, the gang is sent on a classic ghost hunting adventure, and Zubu, who I didn't really notice until now, I sat this one out, and this grabbed Kane's attention, so he sits her down for a therapy session while the gang is ghost hunting. Kane giving Zubu a therapy session definitely surprised me though. He never really gave you the type to care like that, but I quickly realized this therapy session was more or less for him than her. They're back at the haunted house, and they're given a choice to go through 3 different doors, and before the instructor could finish, this nigga Jax already sucked his soul, bro, and then proceeds to break the worst door, which sends Pomni and Kinger to the next leg of the adventure, and they come across a tape that explains this creature that was just broken as fuck. Bro was talking about he had the monster's head on the wall, and bro still came back to kill his family. They find a key to the next door, only for the lights to conveniently go out, and while the lights go out, we learn the fact that Kinger's IQ starts to go up out of nowhere in darkness. Like, they got bro talking like Patrick whenever he hit his head on that fucking rock and shit. They go through this dark hall, and now this is where things seemed a little bit interesting for me. Pomni really started to grasp that like they're in hell for real, which sends her into a manic episode similar to the Gator and Kinger, who given is in the darkness now. I can't help but notice how similar this was to the Gator's plot. If Pomni just told the Gator something like this, why is she tripping about it now? And if you're in an adventure, why are you worried about? I'm just gonna assume it was just a little bit of rush writing. On to the next episode, which was the one that stuck out to me the most. This is the one that I could not find the fucking remote. Fast Food Masquerade, and it kicks off with the gang really starting to get fed up with these so-called adventures. This brings King to making a box where everyone writes out on a piece of paper where they want the next adventure to be, and they ended up landing on doing a closing shift at their nearest restaurant. And it would feel like something is wrong if Jax wasn't doing something out of pocket, and this time he just threw his whole co-worker into a deep fryer. The crew eventually starts working through their shift, and one of the sauces that the customer requested is laced with some kind of drug. Like, Pomni's handling the customer's orders and ended up running into Gummy Goo, and it hasn't really hit Pomni that despite Gummy Goo having seeming pretty sentient or human-like, they're still AIs or NPCs, simply just assets, you feel me? So she tries to get his attention outside of just ordering food and fails tremendously, and this is like where I really seen the comparisons to the other stories like I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, where the plot is an AI computer that wipes out humanity, keeps 5 people only to torture them physically and mentally for years. It's definitely a lighter perspective on it though. Now, it's good to mention that while they're all working here, of course you have to have management. Well, Kane chose Gangle as their manager, and if you know anything about Gangle, you know she's not built for this shit. And this shit was like adding oil to a fire not even 6 hours into their shift, and this nigga Gangle already putting Jax through some torture training simulator. Right after putting him through that, she ends up catching a stray from Ragatha of all people. This eventually sends her into another manic episode, and Pomni ends up sitting down and comforting her twice, as a matter of fact. She even offered to take over the closing shift, so Gangle cut her shifts early and just headed off into the distance until she was hit by oncoming traffic. Looking back at this episode lore-wise, I do not get the point of this shit, but like I said in the beginning, this was the episode that caught my attention. Peak indie film right there. It definitely grasped my attention. Working a 9 to 5, specifically McDonald's. I feel like if this episode was just a standalone indie film, this shit would get a lot more praise. But back to the original point, yeah, nah, I'm not gonna lie, I do not see the point of this episode whatsoever. Episode 5, we can also literally just skip over. Them niggas just got put on random adventures. And episode 6, damn near is the same way, but the only thing that really changes is like we just get more confirmation that Jax is more of a dickhead. Now, this episode didn't have a cliche sit down and realize like we're in this all together type of ending, but it did pick up a whole another huge issue. But like the actual progression of the story is definitely taking a halt at this point, especially considering there are only only like 9 episodes. Definitely a huge red flag to me. Even though I have not seen the full leaks yet, I have been on Twitter, and the ending is sounding pretty lackluster as well. But besides that, I will say that episode 7 definitely made up for all that. And it kicks off with Kane offering the gang to go to a beach resort since he has no adventures in place today. Offered that was just a huge red flag. Nothing about this nigga ever gave off unprepared. So they head to the beach, get soaked up in the water, and Jax decided to start heading back until an NPC in the distance had grabbed Pomni's attention and called her over. Now back to Jax, this is where it gets a little crazy. Jax heads back to his room and we see him grab a portrait of him and his old friend. And I'm not 100% sure if it was revealed then, but that was Kaufmo and Ribbit at the time. From the picture, I'm gonna make the conclusion that this is obviously the way he is. He puts the portrait down, heads asleep, only to notice a weirdly shaped hole with some familiar hands coming out of it. This obviously grabbed Jack's attention and sends him on a full psychedelic trip. And while this is happening, the NPC sits down and explains to Pomni that he's not a real NPC, but rather a forgotten asset. And he backs this up by revealing his name is Abel, which is the second name mentioned in the company of Cain and Abel. After backing his name up, he explains the main point of all of this, and that is he might have actually found an exit or a way to end all of this. They head back to the Chinese room that I didn't mention but was shown as a bit to kick off this episode. Basically, the bit was that he had no clue what was going on behind the door. Once they get behind this door, bro starts talking about everything in more depth, and he explained how his role as one of the founders was creating the code or building the world for them. Kinger the chess piece was his co-worker back in the day. Production started becoming more rampant to the point of taking employees to be vessels for upcoming AI models. Fast forward, and now the digital circus is fully in effect, running off a bunch of servers that are also connected to humans powering the AI in the first place. So their plan is to find a way in the King's master office and shut off the server from there. They start the operation and things go according to plan surprisingly well, and they make it to the master's office and they're given a red and blue button, one that continues the show and one that ends it. Water going through all this, it's kind of hard to disregard this shit, but Jax is like losing his shit for what reason, I do not know. Like, that was the one thing I could not pick up throughout the whole entire show. Why was this nigga like genuinely losing it like that? Pomni starts second guessing the whole thing as they're all inside the fucking room, and bro thought the room was gonna be dark enough for Kinger's dumbass to make a decision. All of this bullshit has made Jax lose his mind even more, so he ended up pressing the blue button for them. So after Jax presses the blue button, King comes directly from the console to congratulate them on choosing the right answer. He also explains that this was all just one big adventure that he had planned, up and down to the Abel NPC, which he claims was just an NPC, and he proves this by deleting him and sending the gang back home. But just about everyone found this whole thing to be something way bigger, and that's where the episode ends right there. Now episode 8 kicks off with a flashback of the beginning days of the new Digital Circus members, not Kaufmo Ribbit. I'm not sure if Jax wasn't introduced yet or he just didn't give a fuck, but why did we not see how Jax came along here? Did we get that flashback? Kane tried to get everyone set for the next adventure, but no one is going for this shit. After all that just happened, they need some time to think, or at least rest. And so they explained that to King, and that was the last straw for King. So he explained how he runs the whole thing in a Disney style song while putting them through straight bullshit. The boys definitely hop right back on them adventures right after. Days of adventures later, and after finishing up one, they decided to head to the cafe to grab some food. Pomni finds a bucket and gets the idea to bring in the Kinger, you know, to give his IQ back so that we can try to make something out of the whole situation. You know, maybe he could come up with something. Kinger ends up revealing that he was the creator of Cain, at least him and another worker named Scratch, who was working for the company called Cain and Abel. So what Abel was saying was true, or the NPC, but Cain and Abel was centered around creating creative AI tools. He also mentioned how Cain is a very powerful AI that doesn't really have any coding for human emotions. I don't really know how to describe this part, but you get what I'm trying to say. Him being a basic human with emotions, that it doesn't run in his code. Pomni asks how can we stop King, and Kinger ends up revealing that they all have the power to conjure objects or things. So Pomni heads out, starts conjuring shit to grab this computer to bring to Kinger. Kinger hops on the computer, starts working on the back end, and the gang stays out, you know, to keep King content whenever he does pop up. This surprisingly bores King, and he starts to question, you know, where is Kinger? So Pomni had to think quick, and they all just started flaming this nigga at once. This just sends him off the wall completely, like no music this time, just straight horror scenes. While this is all going on, Kinger is going to work at the PC since he's still ducked off. He manages to get the code right just in time, and they kill King. This immediately takes effect on their whole world, from everything turning black and white to them being able to cuss without it being censored.
Holy shit.
And that's literally where the episode ends. Now, as of right now, it's like 2 days away from the finale dropping. And like I said, I haven't watched it yet. Between watching a Brazilian dub version or taking my chances at that theater, you know, I really don't know which poison I'm gonna pick yet.
Who's excited for the movie? Fuck you guys.
So I decided to take a gamble at the theater with a couple of good friends to see the amazing Digital Circus finale. And spoiler alert, I ain't gonna lie, man, that shit was good. There's so many different points to tackle, like I genuinely don't know where to start, but we're just gonna go with the beginning. It kicks off with a recap, and now this is coming from someone who watched the show maybe 2 or 3 times. But why is Kane narrating the recap? This nigga just died literally 2 months ago. But he ends up doing what I just did for you guys, just more cringier. And we get back to where we left off, and it starts with Pomni confirming that Kinger really killed Kane, and he confirms this by basically claiming Kane took over while he was attempting to take him down via the code script. Pomni starts crying. I feel like I completely lost supply. Are we supposed to be feeling bad for this nigga? Like, as much as bro put them through with no human emotion, mind you, you're emotional for this clanker. Kinger sees it and tells her to shut the fuck up. This isn't her problem, and there's not much we can do about it. I don't care if that's not what he said. That's what I'm seeing. The rest of the gang probably heard this or something and started building from nothing. And once again, like, have we completely lost the plot? Like, why are we fixing this shit? On the Jax, on the other hand, which I can only assume he's completely gone insane. This nigga walks up to Pomni, gives her a look, and I thought bro was about to give her a hug, maybe choke her out, but no. This nigga just kills himself off screen.
Listen, bro, if anyone ever feels like
they want to take their life, don't do it. Because bullshit like this can happen right after. Zulu and the gang's reaction to this shit was genuinely so lifeless. Like, don't get me wrong, they definitely sold the idea that this nigga was a dickhead. And I did say out loud, like, bro gotta go. But gang, I genuinely never seen Jax do anything like this. Like, maybe lash out on the nigga, maybe kill Pomni like that one clip I seen. But nah, the leaks were just ended up being misleading, at least from someone who was trying to avoid spoilers. The movie did not do it any justice. That shit genuinely disappointed me. Pomni ends up going to this abstracted version of Jax. She finds a way to get inside of him. I'm not sure how this shit works. Like, bro, we get to these doors in the Jax, which at first felt like flashbacks, then in their personalities, then we're foreseeing shit. And then we eventually get to the meat and potatoes, which was Jax's backstory. And basically his parents hated each other, which eventually led to them hating Jax, and him never truly finding an answer.
Squidward's father never hugged him. Isn't that sad?
Yes, I suppose that is rather sad, but Squidward can hug himself during his break.
Genuinely cannot think of any scene that hit harder. We also get a peek into another character, Ribbit, and we see that was his real friend or someone he somewhat trusted. He felt he shared too much for no reason, which only ends up ruining their relationship. Days later, he goes to visit Ribbit, and then she dies fucking off screen. Like, another off screen death. Once again, it was some very hollow shit. We know nothing about Ribbit now, not even the real name. It's annoying as hell seeing all these characters and plot lines get rolled over. But Pomni's experiencing all this shit all on her own, trying to comfort him, and it ends up failing to the point of almost costing her life. The gang sees this shit, saves her, and we get this confusing but like somewhat heartwarming moment. They continue building the circus back to square one, and guess who the fuck decided to show back up? Yeah, so after all that shit we went through for the last 2 episodes, we see Kane in the corner debating whether or not he wants to reveal himself to the gang. He starts arguing with himself, one side being blue, signifying AIM, and red for human or setting in emotions. Continues arguing with himself, and then proceeds to start rebuilding, but this time towards his own brain or AI center. Like, promise you, I do not know what the fuck we're doing at this point. He gets to his own brain, or at least the AI side deletes it. So this doesn't really kill him, but more or less deletes his non-setting or human emotion side. And somehow he ends up back at the Digital Circus. Like, yo, we're actually trolling right now. So you mean to tell me we built up this dickhead of a character, Jax, all just for him to kill himself off screen? Mind you, the game master behind all of this, Kane, supposedly gets killed, resurrects, and then they're just forgiving him. As if this nigga has real emotions. Like, whenever we seen him in the void, which we also never got an explanation for, bro didn't even have any reference to any type of human being. It was a red stick man silhouette or some shit. Like, as a matter of fact, I ended up doing more research on this because like, there's no actual way we got here realistically. And then from the creator themselves, Goosework, Kane was supposed to be a nicer version of AM from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Being said, why are we showing any type of compassion or forgiveness towards this clank? Especially whenever Jax, a fellow slave, ended up taking himself out. I don't know, but I feel like I'm going too hard at this point. The story was good. It has some good original moments, like with the fast food episode and like the random adventures and shit. But as far as like the actual lore goes, it definitely left a lot of questions unanswered or just plain out dissatisfied. Going through all this, I ended up finding a tweet from the creator Goosework, who basically said that like if the fan base became too fucking cringy, that she would just drop an ass ending. And I ain't gonna lie, from the short 2 weeks that I picked up this show, I think it's safe to say this fan base is definitely honest. As far as like the criticism and shit goes, I understand it, but at the same time, the show really isn't that bad. Like in my personal opinion, I feel like if this show was on Cartoon Network back in the day, it would have got some award. I think we have to remember that the studio behind this glitch, that was their whole purpose, like filling in the gap with like teen and young adult shows that mainstream TV really left as a whole. Overall though, the show is pretty good for who it targets. I started to like after being brainwashed for like 3 episodes, but then felt pretty let down with the whole ending. But I also understand why she did that, and then I'm not gonna lie. That's all I really got for today. If y'all boys do enjoy, make sure y'all like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what else y'all want to see. Definitely not no shit like this. I'm not gonna lie.